All right, welcome to daily drawing. I think it's day 5. Anyway, we're going to be learning how to draw a dog today. So I've picked a husky because I really like the anatomy of huskies. They look really cool. They're kind of similar to wolves, but they still have kind of a dog-like quality to them. So if you wanted to edit this to look more like a wolf, then you could, or you can kind of like squish it a little bit to make it look more like a different type of dog. So, and I'll show you how to do that closer to the end of the video. All right, so to get started, the first thing we're going to look at is we're going to look at the body shape. So here we can see that it has kind of like a bigger rib cage area. The hip bones are a little bit smaller, and it's got kind of a slender build to its body. Some dogs are a little bulkier, some are a little smaller, so it kind of depends on what dog you're doing. They do have kind of long necks, not super long, very round heads with a muzzle, pointy ears, kind of thin legs, bigger thighs with smaller lower legs, and then a fluffy tail. All right, so to get started, what we're going to do is we're going to first start with the body shape. So I really love this pose, so I'm going to stick with this pose. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to draw the circle that kind of makes up the rib cage, and then the circle for the back of the body. Now at this point, this is where you can kind of edit it so that you can make it a smaller dog or a bigger dog. Because I'm going to kind of stick close to the photo, I'm going to keep it kind of a little further apart. If you want a smaller dog, like say a Pomeranian or something, you would move the hips forward a little bit so that it makes the torso shorter. So that kind of depends on what you're going for. So I'm going to draw my hips a little further back, and I'm going to make it a little smaller. So that kind of depends on the size that you want. And then after I have my ribs and my hips, then I'm just going to connect it. Here I can see that it has a little bit of a smile to the back of the body and a smile for the bottom of the body, just to show that it's a little bit curved. So I'm going to draw a slight smile line, kind of connecting the top of the ribs to the back of the hips. Same thing down here. A little bit of a smile to connect the bottom of the ribs to the bottom of the hips. So we get that kind of kidney bean look to the body. All right, after that, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and do the head. So here we have our body established. Now I noticed that this right here is the top of my body. So the head is a little bit higher up than the body, but not like super far. If you make it super far, it's going to look a little bit awkward. So just a little bit above the body, I'm going to draw the head. It's also important to note the size of the head depending on the dog. Some dogs have bigger heads, some dogs have smaller heads. Because this is a husky, it's a little bit more closer to the wolf anatomy, their heads are a little bit smaller than what you think they would need to be. So if I measure the size of the head compared to say like the ribs, you should be able to fit one head within the ribs. It's a little smaller than the ribs though. So one head compared to like the hips, it's about the same size as the hips in my picture. Yours might look a little different if you use a different photograph reference. All right, so I'm going to measure my hips. I'm going to go up, and that's about how big I need to make my head. What I'm doing here is I'm doing what is called placing marker dots. That makes it easier to figure out how big it needs to be. That way you don't have to like hold your fingers there while drawing a circle. All right, so now that I know what size I need to make my head, I'm just going to make kind of a round shape for the head size, because I know that it needs to be about that size. So it's a little bigger than the hips, but pretty close. And usually puppies have slightly bigger heads, so if you're drawing a younger dog, it's okay to draw a little bit bigger. All right, so now that I have my head and I've got my body, I'm going to go ahead and do the neck. Notice that the neck is just from the side of the head down, and then it connects to the top of the torso. And then this is from the side of the head down. It has a little bit of a wonk to where it sticks out a little bit at the rib cage area, so we want to have a slight indentation on the neck. So here I'm just going to pretty much go straight down, and then of course add a little bit of a curve whenever you hit the body so it doesn't look too like mechanical. And then down here I'm going to add a slight smile or a parenthesis to add a little bit of a curve so that that torso sticks out just a little bit to make it more dramatic. All right, I'm going to wait for the face. I'm going to go ahead and draw where the ears go. Notice that the ears go kind of like on the top of the head, but it's starting from the side and then going up and then coming back down. So starting at the corner of the side of the head, we're going to go up and down. So right here, going up and then back down. I'm going to add a little bit of fluff later, so that's why I'm not too worried about this part. Same thing on this side, so I'm just going to go up and then curve it with a frown and then make it a slight diagonal line to bring it back down. Now, if you want a dog with floppy ears, the only thing that's different about a floppy-eared dog, if this is the ear on a pointy-eared dog, a floppy-eared dog is actually going to have a longer ear. So it would look almost like a rabbit, which is kind of cute. Except the big thing that makes it floppy is that they're so tall and thin that they can't hold themselves up, so they do what's called a flop. So if you're doing a floppy ear, if you want to draw kind of like the ear shape that you want, draw some sort of like line, like a diagonal line or a frown where you want it to flop. And then what you're going to do is you're just going to flip the tip of the ear down. So what I would do is I would erase the top of the ear, and then I would just draw it right here. So if this is going up and this was supposed to continue up here, what I would do instead is I'm actually going to frown that down and then continue it on the other side here. So this would be a floppy ear for a dog if it was like sticking up a little bit. So this would be like the inside of the ear. This is the outside of the ear. So that's how you do like a dog flop. And some of them aren't quite that perky. Some of them are a little bit lower. So if you want like a big flop, like a dog that has really heavy ears, like a basset hound or something, if this is the top of the head, you'd have a slight bump and then the flop would come down like this. So then that would be like the inside of the ear and that'd be the outside of the ear. So just a little bit about doggo ear anatomy. All right, back to the dog. Okay, so once I have my ears established, then I can go ahead and start drawing the face. Before you draw the eyes and nose, though, it's very important to draw the muzzle first. So here I can see this whole part right here is the muzzle. So the muzzle is making up kind of a big smile on the bottom of the circle of the head, and then it makes kind of a frown at the top of the circle of the head. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find where I want the bottom of my muzzle, which is going to be right here. I'm just going to draw a smile, and then I'm going to go ahead and draw it in the direction that I see it going. So this kind of goes about, not quite halfway into the head, but pretty close, as the slight like straight line, and this one is kind of continuing the smile just a little bit. So it's gonna look like a really awkward smiling face on the dog. Just trust yourself, okay? All right, once we get the muzzle shape in, I don't necessarily have to draw the top of the muzzle. If I wanted to, I could. It would look kind of like a frown of sorts. So if you want to draw it, you can. I usually don't keep that though. If it helps, you can, but I usually don't because it looks a little too cartoony. If you want to draw it lightly so you can figure out your eyes, then that's fine as well. All right, so on the tip of the muzzle, I would suggest drawing the nose before you draw the eyes, because the nose and the ears is where the eyes is going to go. So on the tip of the nose, I'm going to draw a little bit of a frown and then a smile to make up the nose shape, because they have kind of like blocky noses. So a little frown and a smile will be pretty good for the nose. And I'm just going to fill it in black, because most dogs, their noses are black, although some are kind of like pink or brown. All right, then it's a little hard to see in the picture because it's so small, but it does have the muzzle separated into two pieces. If you think about it like a dog's mouth, it has like the upper muzzle and then it has like the lower jaw. So right here, it's kind of making a little bit of a frown or a W, making up that lower mouth. So what I would do for that is I'm going to start on the side of the muzzle, and then I'm just going to make a kind of like a smile going up to the nose, and then a smile going to the other side. So it's essentially like I'm writing the letter W, but maybe not quite that curvy. But that's going to help separate the upper muzzle from the lower muzzle. So that little bitty bump right there is the bottom jaw. So if you want the mouth open, all you'd have to do is just lower that a little bit, and then you can draw teeth and stuff in there. All right, so there's my muzzle. Now, the reason that I kept this right here is to make it easier to figure out where the eyes are. The eyes are, if you look at here, here's the top of the muzzle. The eyes are right next to the muzzle, and they're going to be kind of diagonal in between the corner of the ear and the center of the nose, like this. So you can kind of line that up pretty easily like this. So right above the muzzle and in between the ear and the nose is going to be where the eye is located. So if I go, here's my nose. I'm going to go in between my ear and my nose like this. And you don't have to draw these lines. I like to draw them just so that I can make sure that I'm measuring it correctly. But if you don't want to, you don't have to. So then my eyes are going to be located in this area. All I'm doing for those eye shapes is I'm just drawing a frown for the top of the eye and then a smile for the bottom of the eye. So you could get away with just drawing a circle, and that's fine. I just like doing a frown and a smile because it keeps it a little bit more organic. Now I do the same thing on the other side. So frown and smile, in order to get our kind of eye shapes in there. And some animal eyes are closer together, some are further apart. For dogs, usually you should be able to fit about 2 or 3 eyes in between them. So make sure that they're not too close together. All right, so now I'm just gonna do the fill it in, leave a highlight, just to give a little bit of life to the dog. All right, so already looking pretty cute. I'm liking the face. I'm going to come back and add details later. Some things that you can erase at this point if you want to. You can go ahead and get rid of the top of the muzzle if you don't like it. And you can also get rid of the top of the head area that's in between the ears and the head. So you don't need that. I'll show you how to add a little bit of fluff texture there later. All right, I would suggest go ahead and keep this part because we're going to use that to add the fluff texture. So don't get rid of the bottom of the head because we need that for the jaw. All right. Next, we're going to do the legs. So I'm actually going to start with the upper legs, and I'm going to do the lower legs last. So if I'm looking at this picture, because the dog is kind of sideways, but he's also turning towards us, it's got a little bit of a twist motion. So if we're looking at our reference here, we can see this kind of like shape right here. That's showing us that we can still see part of the belly here, but we also see the shoulders that make up the front of the torso. So right here, we can actually see that this right here is the shoulder. And then this is the arm going down, this is the elbow, and then it goes down for the leg part right here. This part right here that sticks out, that's the shoulder on the opposite side of the body. Leg goes for the elbow, or the wrist, that's the elbow over here, the wrist, and then it goes down. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to first draw the shoulder, and then the arm on this side, and then I'm going to draw this side afterwards. So to do this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start kind of at the bottom of the rib cage area, and I'm going to go up and draw kind of an oval-y shape, like this, so that I get my muscle. Now, if you're drawing a dog that's like a pit bull, pit bulls usually have bigger muscles, or any kind of bull terrier type breeds usually have bigger shoulder muscles, so you'd want to draw a bigger shape for that. So it kind of depends on the dog you're doing. All right, now after I have my shoulder lump, then what I'm going to do is on the back of the shoulder lump, I'm going to go down until I get a little bit past the body, or you can do a little bit above the body, it kind of depends. And then that's going to be my elbow, and then afterwards I'm going to do a slight diagonal line for my lower arm, and then I'm just going to draw a flat line for now. This is going to be where my paw is going to go. So shoulder, elbow, going down for our lower arm. After we get this shape, then what I would do is I'm going to start here on the side of the shoulder. I'm going to do a slight curve. So it's almost like you're doing a parenthesis that's going to slowly go down towards where that foot's at, but don't touch it because we need to leave space for a paw. Because this is supposed to be kind of like a smoother line here, this one gives us the definition of our elbow. All right, once we've got that smooth line established, now on the paw part, an easy way to draw paws is just draw parentheses like this that are kind of starting on the bottom of the paw, curving to the top of the paw. Now, because I'm looking at it from side view, I'm not going to see all the paws facing forward. They're kind of like tilted to the side. So like here you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, but if I tilt it to the side, you only see like 1, 2, maybe 3, depending on how I tilt my hand. So because this paw's tilted away, I only see 4 of the toes, or sorry, 3 of the toes. All right, so I'm going to leave that like that for now. If you want to, you can get rid of this right here above the elbow because we don't need that, and you can get rid of the top of the shoulder, but don't get rid of the side and the front of the shoulder because you want to keep that so that you can see the definition of the leg. Now it looks really silly right now because it looks like there's an arm sideways coming out of the center of the body. Just trust me on it, okay? All right, now for my next shoulder, what I'm going to do, I actually already kind of have a shoulder lump here, so I might not have to add too much of it. What I would suggest doing is adding a little bit of a wonk right here to where we have the shoulder sticking out a little bit more. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to make an indentation here by adding a little parenthesis right here so that it looks like my neck turns into my shoulder right here. So if you're not too worried about detail, you don't have to do that. That's just something that I would personally like to do. All right, now from here, what I'm going to do is before I draw my actual arm, I'm going to go ahead and draw that curve that makes up the belly that's still exposed. So starting here on my shoulder, I'm going to draw a curve going up like this, so that we have the belly exposed. After we have the belly, then what I'm going to do is on my shoulder part here, kind of like in the center of the belly go over, that's where I want to have my arm come out of. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw kind of like a really stretched out greater than less than sign. So it's going to start as a diagonal. Once I get above the foot though, I'm going to drop it down like this. So this is going to be my shoulder. This is my elbow. I'm going to go forward and then drop it down. After I do that, then what I want to do is I want to go down a little bit more. I don't want to go this far down. I want to be a little bit closer to the leg, but not super close, because think about the thickness of the leg. And then what I do is I go repeating that same motion, diagonal line. Now this is actually the wrist. We don't see the wrist here because it's kind of like straightened out, but this right here would be where the wrist is on this dog. So this is actually going to be where my paw is going to be down here. So to draw the paw kind of lifted up, what I would do is I would do a diagonal line down. However, once you get close to the bottom, you're going to go ahead and do those curves. So there's one parenthesis, start on the one that you just did, do another parenthesis, and then you might kind of curve this one out to be another final parenthesis. So now this gives me the illusion of the dog kind of like starting to turn his torso, which looks pretty interesting. All right, so something that you can get rid of is this line on the inside of the shoulder. Be careful not to get rid of the belly line though, because you really need that in order to tell you that the dog is turning. All right, so looking pretty good so far. Now what we're going to do is do the back legs and the tail. So for the back legs, we can see that the thighs are really, really big. A lot of dogs have really big back thighs. here and here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw this one first. So here's the bottom of the belly, and then we have the thigh kind of coming out of the bottom of the belly. So we already have the bottom of the belly drawn. Here's the top of the thigh. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stretch this out into kind of an oval shape, like this. So turning that circle into more of an oval, and then you can get rid of the circle on the inside if it bothers you. All right, now from here, I can kind of see the ankle. It makes a very slight curve, and then it makes a flat line going down. So at the bottom of my thigh, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a very slight parenthesis right here, and then I'm going to draw a diagonal line going down however far down I want my leg. Now, very important, make sure you kind of measure your top leg. Make sure that it's at least that long. If you have like a front leg that's like super long, but then you have a really short back leg, it's gonna look a little weird, not gonna lie. All right, so I'm gonna measure that leg, make sure that I'm not drawing it too short. I think that looks pretty good. I'm gonna make it a little bit longer. All right, so once I get down, after I've done my thigh, I got my little parenthesis for the ankle, and then I do my flat line. Then what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna do that same paw technique. So one, now on this one I do see all 4 toes. So after I do my first parenthesis, I'm gonna do my second one. Notice that I'm not making them touch now because it's turned towards me. And then 3 toes and 4 toes. Once you get to that 4th toe, then all you have to do is you're just going to curve it back up to touch the thigh. You can either start down here or you can start up here. I like to start up here just to make it easier to flow, but that kind of, it depends on you. So I'm going to start a little bit in the belly, not even with the belly, because I want to go a little bit further up. A little further up than the belly, then I'm just going to follow the curve of the thigh. And then after I follow the curve of the thigh, when I get to the bottom, I'm just going to curve it in a parenthesis to touch back to the foot, and that'll give you a really nice curve to make up the back of the leg so that we can easily see the ankle, and then it curves down into the foot. After you have that, then you can erase the inside of the thigh and the top of the thigh, but remember, keep that belly line right there so that we don't get it confused later. All right. Next, we're going to go ahead and do this other leg. Here we can kind of see the thigh is kind of sticking out from the bottom of the body, so it makes kind of like a big smile, and then we see the ankle is a lot more compressed. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to start a little bit further up in the belly, and I'm just going to draw a big smile like this for the thigh. And then as soon as I have that, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go ahead and do the inside part here. So I'm going to start at the top of the thigh. I'm going to do a big smile or a parenthesis. I'm going to continue that parenthesis down, and then after I get to where I want my ankle, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch it to be the opposite parenthesis. Now, make sure that it's not too far lower than this one right here, so be careful of where you're going. So I'm going to have to scoot mine up just a tiny bit, because they are kind of even here, which I could have spaced it out a little bit more, but I'm kind of liking it, so I'm just going to keep it. So figure out where you need to have your parenthesis. So going this direction, switching it to this direction, and then you're just going to go ahead and draw your toes. So same thing we did before, so just little parentheses. Once you get 4 done, then you want to keep it kind of flat on the back of that very last parenthesis, and then we're just going to draw a greater than or less than sign. So after you get the bottom of the paw, go up. Before you touch this leg or before you touch the thigh, though, you want to do a curve to connect it back up to the body. So now we have the thigh, goes down to the elbow, or ankle, and it curves back in. After you get done with that, then you can erase this. If you have any like super sharp points, I would suggest kind of rounding them down. Just give a little bit more life to it. All right. Now that we have the legs done, and feel free to tweak those until you're satisfied with them, but whenever you have your legs done, what you're going to do last is you're going to do the tail. So I like this tail coming down. One thing I really love about Huskies, those is whenever their tails are curly, so I'm going to personally draw mine in a curl. If you want to draw yours straight like this, totally feel free to. I'm going to have to go kind of into my other page here. All right, so the tail is just an extension of the spine. So once you get to the back of the thigh area, that's where the tail's going to come out at. So all I would do is I would just start with the top of the tail first. So here's my spine. I'm going to curve it because I'm drawing mine curvy. I'm going to make a little spiral, however long I want my tail. And then after I get this spiral or whatever I want for my tail, I'm going to start at the tip of the tail. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger because Huskies have really fluffy tails. I'm going to make it get bigger like this. And then it's going to get a little bit smaller when it gets closer to the body. You can make it get bigger whenever it gets close to the body too, but don't make it too big. Otherwise, it's going to look a little bit awkward. So make sure it's not super, super big whenever it touches the body, because usually they start off thin, gets poofy, and then gets thin again. All right, so that's like a super long, fluffy tail. But that's okay. This is art, so you get to do whatever you want to. All right, now that I'm at this stage, now I get to do the detail and stuff. So if you're kind of going for more of a stylized dog, you can probably leave it like that, and it looks like the Husky just got shaved. So it's like really smooth fur. But if you're wanting to add fluff, what I would suggest doing is we're going to go back and we're going to add kind of this texture. So all I'm doing is I'm just scribbling back and forth. Very important, don't scribble like this to where you're having a lot of overlapping lines. You want to try to keep it kind of consistent, but maybe kind of tilt them to the side a little bit. This is called a Z-line, and it's a really great texture to add for fur and fluff. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go through, I'm going to add it wherever I want to. So I want the cheeks to be a little fluffier, so I'm going to lightly erase it so I can still see it. And then I'm going to go back and add kind of a fluffy texture to the cheek, really paying attention to what direction the fur would be going. And this is why I kept that kind of circly shape below, is because I want to draw some fluff going down to the bottom as well. So it looks like one of those huskies that have their body shaved but not their head. Anyway, okay, so on the inside of the ear, I'm going to add a little bit of fluff too. So I'm just going to add some zigzag lines going in both directions, so zigging it up and then also going and zigging it the opposite way. It gives you that kind of fluff look that's on the inside of the ear interior. All right, so now just have fun with it. Add fluffs anywhere that you want to. You don't even have to keep it a fluffy dog. You can make it a smooth dog. You can even make it like an elemental dog. It can be a dog made of fire or something if you wanted to. That's entirely up to you. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add a little bit of fluff here, a little fluff there. And by the way, if you want longer fluffs, like say if this dog had like ridiculously long fur on its tail, you can do longer, more curvy fluffs like this. This will get you kind of more of a Pomeranian-ish look to it, as doing those longer triangles. And it is okay to draw every now and then, just drawing just simple lines. Just be careful not to fill up the lines too much, otherwise the lines will get a little distracting with the rest of the fur. So adding a couple like just lines is fine, but make sure every now and then you go back and you add like a little triangle-y thing in order to help make that fluff look a little bit more believable. All right, so I'm liking the look of that so far. So if you want to add more fluff textures on the inside of the body, you can. If you want to leave it more simple and cartoony-ish, then you can leave it like this and then color or whatever. If you want to add a little bit more realism though, I would look at references. So here I can see the fur is curving in different directions. So what I would do is I would add a little bit more definition to the direction that the fur is curving. That way it gives it a little bit more shape to the body. So I'm just going to look and see other places that I could add maybe a little bit more fluff in order to give it a little bit more flow to the look of the body. All right, so that's actually looking pretty cute. I probably need to not go too much further, otherwise I'm going to start making it look kind of weird. So once you get to this stage and you're pretty satisfied with the actual drawing itself, after you erase any lines that you don't want, then you can add like color and texture and stuff. I'm personally just going to shade it like I always do. Now when it comes to dogs with patterns on their fur, it's very important to pay attention to where that fur is a little bit darker. So here I'm just going to darken up a little bit in some of the parts of the fur, in order to make it look kind of husky-like. I'm actually going to change up the eye pattern because I used to have a pet husky. She was super cute, and I really liked how her fur had like little things going underneath her eyes, so I'm going to add that personally. You can do any kind of pattern that you want to the fur. So you can have like hearts, stars, clovers, all those Lucky Charm items added to the dog's fur and stuff if you want to. So I like the look of the fur here, so I'm just going to go back and add a little bit of softer shading in order to make it look a little bit more realistic here. So we're pretty much at the final stage here. Feel free to show me what you guys have made. I would love to see them. And yeah, so there's a husky dog. All right, good luck. All right, so before we call it quits, though, I'm going to show you how you could tweak this a little bit to make it a different type of dog. So I'm going to have to draw over my sketch of my lizard guy over here. All right, so for example, if I wanted to have it, I have a Pomeranian, so I'm going to draw a Pomeranian here. So if I had like bigger torso, slightly smaller hips that are closer together, like this, then here, I'll erase that so it's not in your way. Sorry about that. I'm out of, I'm out of sketchbook pages, so this is my last one. All right, so torso, smaller hips, bigger head, actually. Bigger, or actually not really bigger ears, just pointy ears. And then I could actually still keep it in the same pose. So shoulder, elbow, littler paws, so not quite as big and bulky paws. They're a little bit shorter. Yeah, so cute. A little roundness. Slightly smaller back legs. You could also make this like a chihuahua. I used to have a chihuahua. Oh man, he was really loud, but he was super cute. Alright, so little back peats. Adorable. Alright, and then really, really big, fluffy tail. Like massive. Alright, so still have that kind of muzzly shape, so I'm just going to draw A little bit of that smile. All right, so notice it's the same exact pose, just I've drawn it more condensed. And then everything's still going to kind of follow those same rules. So the eyes are still kind of like in between the nose and the ear. And so everything's still kind of following that same thing, except I'm just going to change up the fur texture. So here's slightly longer, fluffier fur. So what I've done is notice that I left a gap between the outside of the face and the inside of the face. So that helps make it look a little bit fluffier. And that can kind of help you with the illusion of like more fur. So anytime that you're drawing something with fluff, just have at it and have a lot of fun adding more and more fluffs. All right, so I'm going to keep the paws smooth. Maybe I'm going to add a little bit of extra fluff to the tail. I'm adding some of those triangle spikes and occasionally those just like random curved lines. And then a little bit more fluff on the belly. Little fluff on the back leg. He's got really fluffy back legs. All right, so then if I clean up my lines and stuff, you'll see that that made it more of a Pomeranian using the same exact techniques, just slightly tweaking it and modifying it. And I have a Pomeranian, his name's Teddy, and so there's kind of like a little Teddy, and he's super cute, and I love him. All right, well, good luck. I hope that you guys had fun, and I would love to see what kind of dogs that you guys have drawn, so have a good day. Yeah, bye.